do you feel like you're wandering off your path? Because here's the quick answer. No, because you can't. You really can't wander off your path. And I know sometimes in life when we may not be living our best life, or we know we're not, we're not really engaged in what's going on in the world, we might think, oh, I fell off my path. And yet when you come out of that, if you want to call it darkness, or when you come out of that cave, if you will, whatever you want to call it, where life wasn't going the way you thought it should be going, and you think, oh yeah, okay, I'm back on my path. What you need to start realizing is all of those dips, all of those turns, all of those things that seem way off course, part of your path. Part of everything that happens in your life brought you right to this moment right here and now. And so when you look back at your life and you sometimes think, oh, boy, I wish that hadn't happened in my life. And then if you really think, but if that hadn't happened, well, then this wouldn't have happened. And if this wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened. And then if you're with your beloved, you're like, ooh, I might not have ever met my beloved if I change one thing on my path. And so it's to remember that, to own it all. You can call it good, you can call it bad, you can call it ugly, but to own it all. So how many of you have had home group meetings? Yeah. So part of the process, I meant for the month of December. Let me re-ask that because, okay. So you guys and I know. So part of the home group process this time was to really ask yourself, do you believe in the power that lives within you? Do you believe in the creative idea and the creative manifestation that everything that is happening in your life, you were a player in that? And that sometimes is a hard pill to swallow. And it was one of the biggest gifts I gave myself. And it wasn't when I first came, walking into the door going, okay, this is it. This either works or I'm done. And I meant like I was done. I was really, to that point in my life, I was looking for something that was going to change my life drastically, or I was just going to cash it in because my life was not working for me. And fortunately, this did work. So, phew. Phew. I'm glad that happened. However, it took a while, to start going to classes and to start really doing the spiritual practice and start talking to people that had been in this philosophy for a long time, and to really start to engage in community. I was one of those people, because I was looking to change my life. I volunteered all the time because I figured the more time I spent with those people, the more my life was going to change, and the more possibility I had to live what they were living, or what I perceived they were living. Because we all have issues, right? I could only see the good in these people, though, so phew. So anyway, as you do that, as you kind of shift your life, you have to kind of take a breath. Because I could have sat for a long time and beat myself up about, oh my God, I was a terrible person. I was a terrible mother. I was a terrible wife. I was a terrible this. Ooh, I picked terrible husbands. And all of that comes from, and this is the anomaly, if you will, if that's the right word, Carol will let me know later, of this philosophy, is that it's all about me, and yet I'm not a victim. So there's two kinds of it's all about me. Did I use it correctly? Oh, thank you. So it's all about me, like I'm responsible. So the gift I gave myself down the road after being with all of you people for a long time was anything that happens in my life now, I sit down and have a conversation with Gayle. Not with the person that I think mistreated me, or eventually I might. But my first conversation is with me. Because there's two people in every single situation. That's what you have to remember. My mother used to say to me when I'd tell her, oh, when I was a victim, and I'd give her my big long tale of woes, oh, Mom, again, you know, he did this or she did that, and she'd look right at me, and she was a compassionate person, and she loved me, and she'd say, Gayle, who's the common denominator in all these stories? She was compassionate and loving. Sometimes I didn't like her. Those were those little pearls of wisdom that my mother gave me that I had no idea how science of mind she really was, because she knew nothing about this philosophy, and neither did I. But when I look back on her life, I think, wow, she really understood what we teach here. And it is really taking responsibility for what you invite into your life. And so when somebody says something to me, the first thing I ask myself is, I wonder why I gave that person that script. Why did I have, and especially, you know, you go deeper than just, why is that person saying to me and it's hurtful? Why that person? Out of the billions of people that live on the planet, I energetically attracted this person so they could say that to me. That's real ownership. And it can be really scary. Because what that means is then I am always willing to look at what in me needs to be healed. Because I promise you, if we're still breathing and walking on this planet, there's still a healing going on. You still have things that you want to be revealed within your life. My opinion, you might not agree. Remember what I said, open at the top. You get to take the pearls and the things that don't sound like pearls to you, you just get to toss them out the window. It's okay. I've learned now not to take that personally. Whew. That was a long process, just want to warn you, Bernie. Yeah, takes a while. And it's not about tough skin. It's about realizing that all the things that work in my life, all of the things that I'm willing to share with you, because like I said last week, if you don't have to make some of the boo-boos that I made, great. You'll make your own, but great. And yet it is important to remember that you have all the answers. That is the brilliance of this philosophy. One of the real jewels it gives each and every one of us. All the wisdom in the universe, you already have. Now, I'm not saying we're all can do heart surgery on each other. That's a profession. But the wisdom to live your life to the best of your ability, you already know that. The question of what is my passion, what am I supposed to be doing here on earth, you already know that. If you're seeking, it's because your soul is crying out, it's time to shift. And that's what happened to me, 15 years ago. I'd never heard of science of mind philosophy. And yet every day, this teaching gives me an opportunity to go deeper. And that's why I think we're here. Are you willing to go deeper? It's, my husband wrote a song called Peeling the Onion. And it really is, are you willing to go layer by layer by layer, back to that small child who got hurt and created a defense mechanism around itself, and then invited people into its life every single day to prove to itself, yep, that's why I need that wall. One more brick. Oh yeah, there it is again. One more brick. And what we're doing here, or I hope we're doing here, is gently and compassionately with each other, taking down that wall. So in Advanced Spiritual Living or Practitioner 1 class, they do a timeline. And basically it's from birth until their current age. And the timeline is supposed to be based on every 5 years. You can do more. At my age, 5 years seemed like a lot. But you can do as many as you want, and you do significant events in your life that you remember. So, I start with the ones I actually, okay, this is the day I was born. This is the day I went, into first grade. This is when I took my first drink. This is the first time I got married. All of those events and all the hurts and all the happiness. And it's not about, it's kind of interesting just to draw out and think, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. The intent is to really look at the commonalities in the events that happen in your life. And to realize when you have a timeline, you can go back to the very first time that happened. And here's the deal. If we say here, I can intend something, and if I set my intention, if I do my spiritual mind treatment, if I hold that true in my mind and I don't let anybody pull me off course, that will manifest into my life. Do we not? So if we can go forward, we can certainly go back. And so to remember, you can go back to that small child and say, hey, guess what? That person had no idea what they were talking about. You're an amazing adult. You have accomplished so much in your life. And if you're in your 20s or 30s, God, I wish I would have done this then. I wish I could have done it when I was 10. A gift to say the story that I made up in my head when somebody hurt me. And not saying that it wasn't intentional and it wasn't a real hurt, because those are real. But I defended myself against the world because one person didn't have the common sense to know how to be a good mother. And so and I'm not talking about my mother, just so you know. She was pretty good, although I held her hostage for most of her life. But when I look back on it, she actually was a pretty good mom. So to really go back and tell that child, you're going to be okay. We need to decide not to put up any more walls. Remember, I think 2 months ago, we talked about vulnerability. We need to start opening up our hearts. Longest trip you're going to make from here to here, 18 inches. Can you start communicating with people from your heart instead of your head? And when I first heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. What is it, a freight train? Like, how's this gonna happen? I grew up in corporate America. I spent most of my adult life up here. And now you're telling me, oh, drop down into your heart. Okay. I didn't even know how many of you actually know what that means? Yeah, not everybody. Drop into your heart. So what I think, easy way to interpret that, and talk to those people that have their hands up, they may have a stronger or better interpretation. What if you always came from kindness? What if the first thing that came out of your mouth, regardless of what has been said to you or done to you, your first response was something of kindness? Somebody blows up at you, I understand. I didn't say I agree with them. I didn't say that they didn't hurt me. All I said was, I understand. Because what that's going to do is break the energy. And it will give both of you an opportunity to maybe sit down and have a compassionate conversation about whatever's going on in between the two of you. Instead of blowing up, okay, let me blow up. No, I'll blow up. No, I'll blow up. And then we have a huge amount of energy. And I will tell you, I was good at that. This compassionate stuff, it's a practice for me. If I'm tired, my default is, you want to go high, I'll go higher. You want to get loud, I'll get louder. It took a lot of practice for me to step back and go, oh, first of all, that kind of scares people. And second, you're not listening. If somebody comes at you and your first response is to come back at them, you haven't heard a thing that they've said. All you've done is responded to the energy that they've just tennis balled over the net to you. And so how do you get from here to here? You live the 4 agreements. You know, you don't take things personally. You don't assume anything. That was my hardest one. No, the 2. He always said, be impeccable with your word. Oh, that's the hardest one. I don't think so. I was really good at taking things personally and assuming a lot, because it was easier to make up my own story than to sit down and have a conversation with you where you really might tell me what you think. Oh. So that's how you do that move. You decide that kindness in the world is more important than being right. You know, there's that saying, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Because here's the truth, just so you know, we're all right. Every single one of us. You know why? Because we all believe we're right. Every conversation you have, you believe you're right. You know what? So does the person having the conversation with you. Both of you. And if you stand in that place of, I'm right, well, I'm right, then guess what's not happening? There's no compassion, there's no exchange, and probably the relationship's going to have a tough time making it, be it your partner or just a friendship. You have to listen to each other. That's part of your path. You never wander off it. You always get to choose. This is how I'm going to show up today. This is who I'm going to be in the world today. And am I perfect? No. However, I promise you, every day I practice. Every day I know when I'm not perfect, and I do something to correct it as soon as possible. So I'll give you one example that is personal about things not going your way. And you don't know the details of the story, it's just that I really thought I was right. And I still think I'm right. And I was in a relationship with somebody, it was a relationship, and they thought they were right. And they really thought they were right. And we ended up in court. And we both presented why we felt we were right. And when we walked away, the judge said, neither one of you were right, neither one of you were wrong, you can't sue each other anymore, case over. Now my ego, first out of the gate, was like, are you kidding me? And I had that little conversation. Fortunately, I was here by myself, so I got to have it with me, myself, and I in my office. And then I took a breath and went, oh, the universe is always for you. Always for you. So if the universe was for you, the only way for this to be over was that decision. Thank you, God. And what amazed me was how quickly I went from, I'm really angry, I'm right, to, oh, wait a minute. This is the universe responding, and it's for me. It's not against me. So that was the best call of the universe. And the universe will work everything else out. And I don't ever have to know the details of that. That's having big faith in who you are and why you're here. So let's pray. So calling in that divine energy, Father, Mother, God, Spirit, right here and right now, for it is always here. It lives in and through and as me. It lives in and through and as everything. Ernest Holmes used to say to little children, there is not a spot that God is not. So just think about that. Remember that it surrounds us. It is us. We are enveloped by that divine energy, that power, that presence, that thing itself that knows. And there's a part of us within us that knows that it knows. And so I awaken to that knowing, and I say yes to the divine. I say yes to kindness. I know that my path may veer to the left, it may veer to the right, it may hold steady right down the middle, and yet it is always my path, because I am always the person picking up my feet and putting them down and going forward, or maybe even stepping back. This game of life is ours, and so I invite each one of us to play fully, confidently, be passionate about who you are and why you're here. Love yourself unconditionally, and then spew that out on everybody around you, that you love them unconditionally too. And so I just say thank you. Thank you for this time, for this space, for this community, for this knowing that this life is God's life. It is perfect. It is my life. It is your life, and it is now. So I let it go. I turn it over into that space that we call the law, knowing that it, as it is spoken, it is done. I'm complete. I let it go. I let God. And together we say, and so it is. Namaste. Amen.